the record button right now and let me know when you've done that, and then we'll go from there.
I believe you're being recorded.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so hi everyone. This is Sue Reynolds with the Student Achievement Institute, and this webinar is for schools participating in redesigning school counseling as first-year schools. And the focus of this webinar is preparation. So pretty exciting. We're kind of closing out the year and starting to look at now how do we prepare to implement the program that we've planned. So basically, here's our agenda for today. We'll start out with some updates, reminders, and tips, and then we'll look at a quick review. And then the focus of today is to think about how are we going to prepare for our implementation of the program that you've planned. So we'll go over some general fundraising tips. We know that some of you will need some funding, maybe a little funding, maybe a lot, to implement your program. So we'll just talk very quickly about fundraising. We'll walk through the online system, and that will give you some steps to do to begin preparing for the implementation. And then we'll look at the very last step we'll do is to look specifically at the Lilly grant, the implementation grant. So for those of you who are not planning to apply for the Lilly grant, I'll explain to you when that step will come, and then you can just go ahead and leave the webinar at that point. But if you are thinking about applying for the Lilly implementation grant, you might stick with us for another 10 minutes or so, and we'll talk about the help that we'll provide with that. So, okay, I'm going to go to the one thing that we just wanted some information on and to kind of see where everybody was with this, and it's our first poll. And in your last meeting with your council, we transitioned from your council members being people that just gave you their thoughts to hopefully organizations that would help you implement activities. And I've been spot checking some of our 2016 schools and also our new 2017 schools to see how many partners you were kind of being able to convert from being advisors to actually workers for you. And I'm seeing that a lot of the schools have a significant number of partners. I think I found one school that had 20 different community organizations that were going to help them implement their activities. So if you would just think for a minute and just kind of tally up how many folks in the community are already helping you or have committed to help you implement different activities that are part of your school counseling program. So it may be ones that you have worked with for years, or maybe some new folks that have said, yeah, I'll come on board. I want to explore with you how I can help to implement your program. So I'm going to go ahead and open that poll, and let's see, figure out, here we go. I'm going to open that poll. And here we go. And if everybody could just kind of vote in real quickly, that'd be great. So the poll's launched, and if you'll just kind of add in, I see 13% of you have voted. So if everybody would kind of do that, that would be great. So half of you have voted, wonderful. 2/3 of you have voted, 3/4 of you have voted, 90% have voted. Okay, wait for a couple more seconds. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll and share the results. And you should be seeing the results now. And Debbie, are you seeing the results on your screen?
I did a minute ago, but now it's gone.
It is. Well, let's do this again.
Oh, there it is.
How's that?
Good.
Okay, can you go over those results with everyone, please?
Yes, we see that 14% of you have no partners, 57% have 1 to 5, 14% have 6 to 10, 14% have 10 to 15 partners.
Okay, great. So it looks like a third of you have more than 5 partners right now, which is wonderful. But everybody, well, most everybody has some partners, so that's great. One of the things that, well, I'll wait till we get to that part later, but when we're talking about writing a good funding application, one of the things that funders will look for is to see how much support you have locally for your initiative. So I think being able to list that you have 10, 15, 20, 30 partners and even a partner that's providing some kind of in-kind support rather than actually conducting an activity would be good for that. So, okay, very good. That helps me kind of have a sense of where you are as we move forward. So, okay, quick review. And we're kind of at the end of the process right now. So let's just kind of look back through this journey. Remember that as you got involved in RSC, we discovered that RSC was really about helping students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. I know what you're going to tell me. Okay, how's that? Does that help?
Great.
Okay, sorry, forgot to unshare the poll, and then you couldn't see the slides. So remembering that RSC is about helping kids make sound choices. And this is the pyramid, and we said, okay, if we can, the focus of our school counseling program should be to help kids make those good choices. And then as a result of those good choices, we should be able to see achievement go up. So this year, for the past year, you've started out with, and this was like in the beginning of the school year, you started out with looking at, okay, what are our school's achievement goals and our school improvement plan? What choices do we need to help students make in order to reach those goals? And then recently you've been looking at what guidance activities and counseling activities do we need to put in place in order to help kids make those choices. And then you also looked at delivery models to see how you could expand the amount of guidance and counseling that you're able to provide for kids. Okay, so in this process then, this is kind of, what we did. We started out getting ready, and then we did an intro with your council. We did a vision with your council. We did your goals, your student choice goals. We looked at expanding resources, and for some of you, we had to go back because in the middle of this whole year with you, Lily announced that there was significant funding available for the implementation of your plan. So before, when we got in December, January, when we talked about expanding resources, you might have thought that you had maybe $200 coming in from a local business, and now you have an opportunity for tens of thousands of dollars. So you expanded resources, and then you identified priority goals. And for some of you who are really expanding your resources and maybe going to take advantage of the Lilly funding, you were able to really look at tackling a lot of priority goals over the next 4 years. And for those of you who are not planning on applying for the Lilly implementation funds, you probably selected a smaller number of priority goals. Then in February, you looked at, okay, what's getting in the way of those priority goals? And in March, you said, okay, if these are the things that are getting in the way, then what are we going to do about it? And here's where you really started moving to action, where you defined, okay, these are the guidance activities that we're going to implement either next year or over the next 4 years. These are the counseling activities, this is the advocacy, and this is the management that we're going to do. And then today, we're going to further prepare. So we're going to look at a program implementation calendar. We're going to look at putting together a Gantt chart, putting together an annual budget. We'll look at fundraising, and then we'll look at starting to develop your guidance lessons. And so we'll talk about that today, really kind of how to get ready now to put those activities into place. Okay, so at this point, your school counseling program plan is complete. You have a vision, goals, you have a resource expansion plan, you did priority goals, root causes, and delivery methods and activities. This is your plan. And now the step is to get the plan off of the paper and actually get it into practice. So we're in transition now, moving from planning to action. We're setting ourselves up so that that action actually occurs. So, okay. So when we are talking about your preparation, these are the 5 things we'll be looking at. You'll have an activity calendar, and actually your activity calendar is already done. Because when you entered your activities, you put in the implementation date for each activities, and the computer is just going to now take all those dates and create a calendar for you. So that's finished. And so today we'll be talking about putting together your Gantt chart, which is just, these are the Gantt chart describes the timeline for the major tasks that you need to do. And then we'll talk about putting together a budget and a little bit about fundraising, and then lesson plans. So, okay, so let's start out then with some fundraising tips, because for all of you, whether you're planning on applying for the Lilly implementation grant, or if you're just going to, talk to a local business about maybe providing a small number of funds, or even if you're just going to your principal or your superintendent to ask for funding, these are tips that I think will help you. Okay, so here are some tips. First of all, if you're looking for funding sources, there are 2 sources that we use. One is the Foundation Center. The Foundation Center is a clearinghouse of information about grant makers. And then the other one is GuideStar. GuideStar gathers financial information about foundations and charities. And like our organization is listed in GuideStar as a nonprofit. And what you can do in that is you can look up the organization's tax reports, and you can see who the major players were in the tax report and all that. So, so GuideStar is another really good source to find funding. Now, one tip, and the very first tip is one that, as we've talked with schools about the Lilly funding, we're seeing this as being a concern. Don't be wowed by the size of the foundation's grants. So as we've talked with schools and you've looked at the size of the Lilly grants that are being provided for schools, a lot of schools that we're talking about are thinking, oh my gosh, how could I ever spend that much money? That must just be for Indianapolis or for Evansville and not for my little district that has, 1 elementary school, 1 middle, 1 high school. So just because the foundation is listed a top dollar amount, that doesn't mean that you have to get to that top dollar amount. And really, one thing that would be irresponsible would be to ask for more money than you need. So you want to really just ask for the money that you need, and even if it's $500, I mean, that's okay. What grant makers tend to do is they list the largest amount, or when they're listing everybody that they've given grants to, they'll list only their biggest grants. So while you may read about a grant maker like Lilly and see that they've given $200,000 to this person or this organization, or $500,000 to this organization, they also have a ton of little tiny grants that they're giving out. So don't be wowed or worried that you can't apply for the amount of money that they have listed that's available to you. That's okay. Okay, then another tip is, as you're looking for a good fit in a grant maker, you want to be looking at the grant maker's assets, who they've given grants to in the past, what their giving priorities are all about, who their contact names are within their organization, and any guidelines that they've provided. So like if you were just to research Lilly Endowment, you would find that Lilly provides a lot of funding for education and a lot of funding for religious activities, and that most of their funding is awarded within the state of Indiana. So that makes them a pretty good fit for a school, for an educational initiative. So how do you research these funders? What I usually do is I'll go to their website and I'll just look all through the website, and I'm thinking, is this funder a good fit for us? Would they be interested in the kind of work that we do? I look at their annual reports, and then I'll also will look at their tax returns. But usually the website is where I go. I'll look at the organization's mission. I'll look at their who they've funded in the past. The annual report will tell you a lot with that, so I'll read their annual report. Now, with the Lilly initiative, you're not like, researching a funder who hasn't, Lilly has already said they're interested. But some of you may decide you want to go to your local community foundation or, some other funder. And so you'd be looking for a funding source that's a good fit. Also, it's real okay to call up a funder and to just say, would you be open to a 5-minute phone call? I just want to explore if I'm a good fit for your foundation or for your organization as a grantee. So most organizations will grant you a 5-minute phone call, and you can just quickly explore if there's any interest on their part at all. And they'll tell you, we don't usually award funding to organizations in your state or for organizations that do the kind of work that you're proposing. So, okay, so that's kind of like how to explore those funding sources. Now, this is really important, and that is to, and again, when you're applying for the Lilly grant or any grant that you may be applying for, when the grantor says that there's a limited number of pages, they mean it. They may be getting thousands of grant applications, and they don't have time to read a really long proposal. And you don't want them to get so frustrated that they just, decide to skim your proposal and not really, read into it. So one thing that I used to do is that I can get very wordy in my proposals, and I used to think, okay, I can get more on a page by making my font small and making my margins like minuscule. And as I started to learn, is that I was just making a headache for the funders. So keep the font size normal and have normal margins, and don't be squeezing 12 pages into 10. So, okay. Another mistake that a lot of beginners will make when they're fundraising is they'll present a lot of topics to a funder, and they'll say, okay, here's 5 or 6 things I could do, you pick. So that funders don't want to be in that position. They want you to present to them what's important to you, and then they'll just give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Another mistake that folks make is they'll think, well, I know 6 different people at Lilly or at your community foundation. I'll just send the application to everyone. And that just gets really confusing. So you need to for the organization. So you need to figure out who's the organization's contact person for your school or your district, and then just send the application to that person. And then also be clear in your application about who your organization's contact person is. A lot of times grantees will, or potential grantees, will send in an application that's got like 5 or 6 people listed in a cover letter, and the funder doesn't know who to call. So, so be really clear about who your contact person is. Okay, do the math. As someone who has managed some mega grants for and awarded grants on behalf of foundations, I can't emphasize this enough. Double check your math. It's so frustrating to have this wonderful application and the math in the budget is all wrong. And so I've got to send it back and say, please correct, and then it comes back to me and it's wrong again, and it just takes so much time. So again, your goal is to make everything as easy as possible for your funder. So triple check that math and the budget, make sure it's all okay. Then I would also suggest that you have a financial person who could be your district treasurer or your school treasurer. Just check the appropriateness of your line items, that if you say something is registration, but then you don't know where to put travel to the meeting, that you've checked with a financial person to say, should my travel to the meeting go on the meeting line item, or should it go on the travel line item? So check that. And then the other thing, someone who has a lot of experience with grants and financial matters can help you with is looking at what are the real costs. A lot of times when I'm reviewing grant applications that have come to us, I'll see a number on a line item for something that I know is way too big or way too small. So we always suggest, and when I'm applying for grants, I always cost it out to the penny. I do my homework. I price everything ahead of time so that I'm coming in, with a reasonable amount and not just a guess of what things will cost. Also, that kind of leads us into, be realistic with your figures. Don't ask for the, for more than you need or less than you need. So, okay. So here are some things you can do to boost your success in getting your application approved. First of all, funders like to see that their grants funding will be used to make a program sustainable. And you can do that in a couple of ways. One way is to show how your grant funds are going to be used to bring in other grant funds. So, that you're going to do marketing to secure other funding or whatever. Now, in RSC, we've set it up so that you're not going to need a lot of additional grant funds if you continue with us over the next 4 years. And so while we will do a little of that, if you continue with our new initiative, that's not going to be a big issue. So the other thing is for us, number 2, so if you were to continue with us in the next 4 years, we'd be helping you to show Lily or whoever your funder is that your grant funds are going to make the most out of your schools and communities' current resources. So in our initiative, we'd really suggest that you hit number 2. So you're going to show how you're going to use your grant funds in the future to support your organizational structure, to strengthen your organizational structure, to utilize volunteers, to complement the work of professionals. That's why we're really focusing now on partners to bring to the table to complement your work. You'll be using those resources to develop programming and to develop people, professional development, so that at the end of the 4 years, if you're working with us, you'll have volunteers in place, you'll have the program developed, and you'll have everybody trained. So we're using grant monies to make the most out of your schools and your community's resources. We've heard, and you've heard Lily say, and most funders would say this, that they don't like to see their funds being used to hire personnel, because even if you have a promise right now that 4 years from now somebody else is going to pick up that bill, is that really going to happen? And if it doesn't happen, then the whole program is just a waste of time. So, okay. Number 3, use positive wording. You wouldn't want to say we need this money because our program's a mess, but you'd want to say we need this money to build upon the wonderful start that we already have. So, and then number 4 is showing support from local organizations, and that's why, again, we're moving to bring in these partners. So you'll be able to show that you have a school counseling council. That shows buy-in from all of those council members, that they cared enough about this, that they came to your meetings. That's going to be big in any application that you send to any funder. And then you'll be able to say, and some of the people were moved so much and were so engaged that they agreed to go a step further and become partners that are going to help us implement the program. So you'll be able to show that too through your RSC work. Okay, patience and persistence. So first of all, it might take 3 months to get a response. So we know with the Lilly funding that they're not going to announce who gets the funding until the end of September, while your application is due in May. And that's because, they're wanting to spend their money carefully, and they're going to really look at all the applications, take the time to read them carefully, and they'll get hundreds, if not, thousands. So, so don't be surprised if you don't hear back over a long time. And just one thing in the future when you're applying for funding, so this is kind of nice because Lily has given you the deadlines, but in later, 2 years from now, if you're applying for funding from your community foundation or some other foundation, remember that if you need the money in September as school starts, you're going to need to get that request in to your funder in, in April or May to give them time to review it sufficiently. Okay, now what happens if you're not awarded a grant? So first of all, that does not reflect on the quality of your program. I know that that's when I get turned down on a grant, I'm thinking, oh, my program must be awful, what do I need to do? But it's really not a reflection on the quality. There's a whole lot of other reasons that you might not have been approved other than the quality of the program. There's some degree of luck involved. If you happen to be applying right when there's some extra money that the organization needs to get out to grantees, that's just kind of a luck thing. Also remember that the door is not permanently closed. It's just closed for, that application. What I always do, and I suggest you do, but very few people do it, is that if you get turned down, immediately call the funder to find out why your proposal was rejected. That's a really good learning opportunity for you. I can, for most people, you do get turned down on your first grant application if you don't have somebody helping you that knows how to write grant apps. So that needs to be the start of your learning curve. Why were you turned down? And then, what are you going to do differently next time? So, and it may be that you were a good fit with that funder, but they just ran out of money. And so the funder might say, come back in 6 months and apply again because we think you're a good fit. Or if you're not a good fit with that funder, and this has happened to me quite a lot as well, they may say, that's really doesn't meet what we do, but here's another funder that we know of that we think would be a really good match for you. And so they'll kind of head you in a different direction. So I really suggest that if you get turned down, that you call the funder and find out why. And then also, if you get turned down, and I can't emphasize this enough, if you like the program that you developed with RSC and you apply for that Lilly grant and don't get it, don't let that stop you. We'll help you figure out, okay, where do we turn now to get the funding to implement whatever the program was that was important to you. So, okay. And then finally, when you're applying for funding, I think the whole thing is about relationships, and I love this quote. From beginning to end, grant seeking is all about good communication. It really comes down to relationships and getting to know people. And, if you get turned down on your first grant attempt, call, figure out, what's going on, and start to develop that relationship. Relationships in grant seeking, I think, are really, really important. So, okay, so there's a little bit about grant writing. One other thing is these are the line items that when you get into the online system that we've set up for you. You don't have to use these, but our system will support these line items. So I notice I put a red flag up next to personnel and fringe benefits. We always think that that's a red flag because it makes the funder wonder if this is going to be sustainable after the grant period. The items that are in blue there are items where we think you'll probably will be requesting most of your funds for. So some materials and supplies, probably not a lot. Meeting expenses, reserving room space, refreshments, that kind of thing. But our thinking is that most of your funding is going to be spent in contractual, providing stipends, and we'll give you some ideas of that in a sec, and then also for technical support. So, okay. So stipend examples, a project manager for over 4 years, that if you're looking at, somebody spending, a couple hours a week on this for, a school year, that at whatever your hourly rate is, I mean, that's a chunk of change. If you're developing a teacher advisor program, the grade level coordinators. If you're developing a community-based guidance initiative, who's going to coordinate that? Academic integration, parent-based guidance coordinator. These are all things that you can pay people for their time. Now, where do you get that time from? Well, you cannot get it from the school day because your school is already paying you for your work during the school day. So I would think of this as an extracurricular assignment that, just like we pay a basketball coach for doing some work outside of contract hours, we would be paying these coordinators for a stipend that is kind of like extracurricular pay for the work that they're doing outside of the school day. and noting that not all people can work outside the school day. But you can explore this as you start to put together your grant application. Okay, let's look at the online system. And I'll pause here. Debbie, are there questions as I'm going online?
No, no questions so far.
Okay. Okay, so now in the online system, I'm going to do a quick refresh here. Okay, in the online system, if I scroll down to our final steps in April, okay, so we've got the program design, our activities, we have a sense of what we're doing, our delivery methods, our goals, root causes, everything's in place, and now we need to implement. So first of all, we're reviewing the annual activity calendar. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the report, and I'm in demo school, so I don't know if there's anything in here. No, there's not. So all of the activities that you listed in the activity section and put dates behind, all those activities will appear here. So there's your calendar. So what we want you to do is review it and to be thinking about, can I really do all these things? Can we really do all these things in September? Can we really do all these things in November? Once you put everything in that counselors do, there's quite a long list. So we want to look at, is this activity, is this, realistic? Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and submit it. And when you hit that submit button, it is, whoops, let me back up once. Where am I? Activities, review activities. When you hit the enter button on this one, what this is asking you is this is your last chance to think, over my head on my capacity. So we're just asking you, do you think you can do all these activities? So just say yes, and then it will, you can put some comments in and then hit save. Or if you don't think you can do all those activities, hit no, and then this is going to ask you either take out some activities, increase your resources, or look at, putting in a budget proposal or a funding proposal. So it gives you some, if you don't think you can implement the whole program, this is your chance to change things to the point where you can implement the program. Okay, then you're going to hit save, and then you'll submit on that. Okay, so that's the review annual activity calendar. I'm going to go to enter the Gantt report tasks. This is a brand new report for us. I want to compliment our tech staff. I'm just really impressed with this. So I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to add an item. So I'm just going to type in an item here, and I'm going to start out with recruit school counseling partners, because that's probably going to be one of the first things that you do. And that's something that I'm going to do throughout the first year of my implementation. So I'm going to, and it's going to happen in the first year. Notice in the first year we've given months, but after the first year we've not given months because we know it's kind of hard to plan out to that detail over a year from now. So I'm going to say, okay, this is something I'm going to do all year long. I'm going to check all. Then I'm thinking, I'm probably really not going to do that in July because I'm on vacation then. So I'm going to uncheck July. Then the delivery method, the delivery methods will be here. I don't think that's going to work right now. Nope, we're still working on that. So delivery methods will be there so that if it aligns with the delivery method, you'll check the delivery method. That will allow us later to sort the tasks by delivery methods. And then I'm going to save. Okay, so I've got that one up there now. I'm going to add a couple of more. Let's say I'm going to create, let's say you decide to go ahead with our new initiative, Guiding All Kids. I'm going to create the GAC organizational, oops, spelled it wrong, the organizational structure. And I'm just going to do that next year in October. So I'll click that, save. I'm going to add another activity. And let's add one that I'm going to implement community-based guidance activities. And let's say in this one, I'm going to develop it first semester. I'm going to implement second semester of next year. And then I'm also going to implement in all 3 of the future years. Okay, so I'm going to save. Now, that's how we're going to enter the activities. I'm going to go back to the process page and go back to April. And in my Gantt report then, if I look at the report, you can see here it is, where we now have a Gantt chart that shows me the different major tasks and the months that they're going to occur in. So this is kind of just an overview of what you'll be doing over next year. If you just want to put in 1 year's worth of tasks, that's fine. Or if you want to go out all 4 years, that's fine as well. And it just kind of tells you what months you're doing these major tasks. So let me back up. These are not activities. So the activities are the little tiny activities that you're doing. These are the major projects that you're doing, like training your teacher advisors or recruiting council members or developing curriculum. So they're kind of the major tasks that you're doing that you would enter in, and then the system will create this Gantt report. So, okay. If you have questions about that, if you'll type them in, and I'll go back to the process page, but I think that was, Debbie, any questions on that?
Nope, no questions, thanks.
Okay, so that's just another way to kind of get organized. So we've got our activities in, and then we've got these bigger tasks that we have to do to get these activities in place. Then this is where you would enter an annual budget or upload a funding proposal. Okay, so the rubric item for this says that if you have a budget, maybe a budget that your principal has given you or a budget that you set up for yourself, or we know a lot of schools, the counselors don't have any budget. They just, when they need something, they go to their principal and say, can I have some money? In other schools, the principal will say, just like they've said to the math department, you've got a $900 budget for this year. They'll say to the counseling department, you have a $900 budget for this year. So if you have a budget, you're going to create a budget in our online system. If you don't have a budget, then we need you to upload a funding proposal. So that could be a funding proposal to your principal. It could be, dear principal, I need X number of dollars this year to cover these things. And so you've proposed that to your principal. It could also be a budget proposal to your community foundation or a business or your PTA or whoever. So okay. So now, when you're putting your budget in, so let me back up. If you're uploading a funding proposal, you're just going to hit this upload icon, and that will allow you to upload a file from your computer. If you're creating a budget, you would click that, and here is our budget creator. So I have already put in some things, some stipend amounts. So you can see I entered a stipend for a project manager. I figured 104 hours, which is basically 2 hours a week at $30 an hour. So that gave that project manager just over $3,000 a year. And also I went with a 4-year. So you can, up here, you can change it to a 1 year or enter a 4-year, either way. Okay, and then your school year, that is the year that you're starting your budget for. So you would be starting it for next year. So your first year is going to be 17-18. And then you can see in these amounts over here, it's changed the dates to the 3 future years. Okay, I also, for this demo school, I'm thinking, we're going to create a teacher advisor program, so I need funding for a coordinator. And then we're also, for a teacher advisory program, and actually, let me edit that. We need a stipend for our TAP 9th grade lead. And notice in these budget notes, I'll just show you this one for the 9th grade lead. So I've said, okay, in year 1, this 9th grade lead is going to need 20 hours worth of funding for curriculum development. And then after that, we're going to do 10 hours of oversight as that teacher's working with the other 9th grade TAP teachers at per year at in years 2, 3, and 4. So we're developing in year 1, and then we've got a different amount that we're going to need in years 2, 3, and 4. So you can see how that math kind of, you know, varied, that it was 900 in the first year, and then oversight was a lower amount in the next 2 years. Also, if we look back here on the TAP coordinator, you know, if that's a program that's not going into place until year 2, and actually I probably needed to do that differently. This would probably, if it's not a program that's going into place until year 2, I wouldn't need any money for the 9th grade TAP lead in the first year. So okay, so that's, you know, that's how we do that, and you would just get everything in there, and you can see my total is coming at the bottom, you know, and already I'm just, you know, partway through developing one initiative, just the TAP initiative, and you can see how that funding is adding up. In terms of the line items, you just hit the drop-down button, and there's all the different line items that you can choose from. So maybe I need a, let's just add one in here. So I click the add another budget item. Maybe I need, for my 9th grade TAP, I need a TAP 9 goal setting manuals. So then I'm going to say, okay, this is materials, and let's say you're doing one for every student in the 9th grade, and let's say I've got 200 9th graders, so I'm doing 200 at, let's say they're $2 a piece, equals $400, and then I would need that. I don't need it in the first year because I haven't implemented the program yet, but I'm going to need that in each of the following years. Okay, so that's how that works. The budget notes, I love doing detailed budget notes because 2 months from now I'll forget how I came up with that number, and so then I can look back and say, how did I get 400? Oh yeah, there's 200 students, and you might even say 200 students at $2, you know, equals. So okay, and I'm going to do save. Okay, and then I can open up the report, and you can see now here's what the budget. Here's my budget. So, you know, here's my materials and supplies. There's the $400 per year, so it's totaling per year, and then the total for all 4 years. So I think that would be a really good way to total up your funding. And also, if the computer is doing it for you, you won't make any math mistakes. so that's nice. So, okay, let me go back. Then that's the budget. Then, okay, applying to Lily. This is optional, but what I wanted you to see here, and this is not finished yet, we'll have it finished this week, but here's the help sheet. I just wanted to show you what this was going to look like. So this will be for your district, to help them if you're working with your district folks, or if you are writing the Lily implementation grant, this would help you. So at the top, we've given you the links to the Lily Endowment website, to the Lily Counseling Initiative web pages, and then to the request for proposals. Then in the bottom of this is actually the request for proposals. So there's a note here, language in black font is taken directly from the Lily RFP. So this is the first paragraph in the Lily RFP, and then underneath this paragraph there are bullets. And so I put the bullet in this first column. This is Lily language from the RFP. So every word that's written in the RFP will appear on this page, in this help sheet. Then anything that's written by us, I've put in blue font. So so what we did was I read this language, and I said, okay, what are the main questions in this? And what I think Lily is wanting to know is who led the preparation of the grant application, and who will lead the management, who will lead or manage the implementation. And then over here, there will be links to work that you've done in RSC that would help to answer this question. So if you have a district steering team, you'll be able to click here on district steering team, and that will open up the district people. If you are wanting to look at your school steering team, you can click that and it will open up your school people. So we're just giving you shortcuts so you don't have to keep scrolling through the process page and looking for the parts that crosswalk with this RFP. Then sometimes, like on this next one, the RFP says briefly describe the comprehensive counseling model to which the applicant aspires. So for us, you know, this is a vision. We're briefly describing the program that you want to which you aspire. And then what we'll do is if you are thinking about continuing with us, we'll give you sample language. So you don't have to use our language. I would rework it so it really kind of fits your style and your writing, you know, the way you write. But we'll give you something, you know, to start with there. So, okay, so, and then if you're not starting with us, then, you know, you've obviously found a different model that you aspire to, so you would just describe that model in this section. So, okay, so that's that. Then, let me go back. So, and again, that's optional. It's just a tool for you if you're interested in applying for the Lilly Grant. Okay, last thing is looking at creating lesson plans. I'm going to click on Enter. Now, for Gold Star, if you're interested in Gold Star, there are 9 lesson plans that are required. You need to have 3 lesson plans whose main focus is on academic development, 3 plans whose main focus is on career, and 3 plans focused on social personal skill development. Okay, so when you log into this page, you'll see that your current plans are listed here. So I've already put in 3 or 4 current, or 3 or 4 lesson plans. And then you have some tools up here. You can import lesson plans from other schools. So if you use the search tool and you type in, you know, something like career interest, no lesson plans match. So I'm going to go back, make that a little bit, oh, because I spelled interest wrong. I thought maybe I needed to make it a little bit more general, but let's try spelling it right and see what happens. Yeah, so we've got 5 lesson plans, and if you read through these and you like one, and you, rather than retyping it all, you could just say import to my school's lesson plan. And then as a reminder, we have kind of told you how many other schools have imported this lesson to kind of give you, you know, some thinking about kind of a clue on which of these people felt were maybe better developed, so, or more comprehensively developed. Okay, so that's that. Then you can also enter a lesson plan that you create. So I'm going to do that. And, you know, I could type something in here like anti-bullying lesson. Who am I going to do this with? Grade 6. Who's my targeted groups? Maybe I'm going to do this just with boys or just with, you know, one of these groups, or more likely it's going to be with all groups. Remember that one of your lesson plans has to be for a gap group. That's a rubric item. So at least one of your lessons has to have a targeted student group. What's the setting? Maybe this is a lesson that I'm going to do individually with every student in the building when they come in to meet with me for my annual appointments, or maybe it's a classroom guidance lesson. I'm going to say classroom guidance. Who's going to be the facilitator? Jane Doe. Number of students will be, let's say I'm going to do this with the entire 6th grade, so there's going to be 120. Then what competency indicators? So here's all the competencies. This is brand new, and when you click this, that is definitely linked. I don't know why that's not opening. We'll check that as soon as we close. All of the new indicators for the new Indiana competencies will pop up there, and you'll select the indicators that it matches, that this lesson plan matches. Then you'll write a summary, how much time is required. This is going to take 30 minutes or 1 hour or 6 class periods, whatever. And then the procedure, and this is to help out other schools as well as yours. So you're going to say, you know, number 1, pass out, you know, whatever. And then the evaluation, and you're just going to say, you know, as a result of this, what would you expect to see? And I would make that evaluation as measurable as possible, that your, you know, referrals to the office for bullying would increase if that's your intent, or would decrease because students are not being aggressive or passive, but they're being assertive, you know, appropriately. So whatever, you know, you expect to see as a result of this lesson, and then just hit save. So, okay. And then finally, resources needed. You can add the resource in here, like bullying brochure. And then if this is something that's available online, you can just type in the web address, and that would make it available to other people. And then you can add another resource. Okay, then if you want to upload a resource that you've developed, which is often what I do, you can choose the file that will open up a browser so that you can upload a file from your computer. Citation, if you using somebody else's work or their materials, make sure you give them a citation. And then if you are collaborating, like if this is going to be presented by a teacher, advisor, program, or whatever, you'd want to write in who the partners were, and then save. And then finally, we're asking you, can you, after all of this is filled in, this will become hot, and we're asking you to identify if the lesson plan is complete, and do you give ASA permission to share your lesson plans with other schools? And then you'll tell us what information you want us to share, just your school name, or can we give your contact person's name and the email and the school's phone number. So, okay, that's that. And that brings us back to then the process page. And Debbie, do we have any questions?
No, I don't see any questions.
Okay, pretty straightforward, doesn't surprise me. Now, I do want to just give you a heads up to what's coming up in May and June, especially for those of you who are not applying for the Lilly implementation grant. You are welcome to just move right into this section. So there will be shortly a video that you can just watch, and we'll do a webinar on this on May 2nd, but if you want to move ahead, that would be fine with us because we know May is so busy. So you would upload your advisory council agendas, upload a job description. Remember, anytime there's something in the tools column, that means we're giving you a sample or something that's going to help you. Upload the assurances statement. If you click this, it'll download a sample statement for you. Upload your program brochure. This is going to give you a place where you can research all different other schools' brochures. Upload public relations, presenting your portfolio to your school board, which is one of the final requirements for Gold Star. That's public relations. Professional association membership. You can copy a membership card, or a lot of folks, the Ask a Counselor magazine that has the mailing label on the front of it, they'll just scan that to show that they're a member of ASCA. Upload professional development, anything that you've done with RSC, of course, would be professional development. So if you've got a memo from us or whatever, you could upload that as proof that you participate in RSC. Then the narrative questions, those are questions that about the process that ASCA wants to see and therefore Indiana wants to see. So one of the things I wanted to show you in this is that if I enter like consultation services, you're just going to get a text box and you're going to describe, in it could be one sentence, how do you provide consultation for your teachers and parents. But on some of this stuff, like on the mission statement, or on the philosophy or vision, when you click on that, you're going to notice that there's words in there already. So we know how you did the vision. So we explained how you put together your vision statement. So so if you can either edit what we've put in here if it doesn't quite match what you did, or you can just use what we've written. Really doesn't matter. So some of these are already filled in. Just read them and make sure that they fit for you, and if they don't, then edit them or take them out and rewrite your own. So okay. Yeah, so I think that's that, and this would be a good place to delegate as well. You know, there's, I don't know, 20 questions here, and you've got 2 counselors, maybe split these between counselors. So, okay. So that is the narrative questions. And then when you're all finished and everything says meets criteria, you can choose to put your portfolio online. So if I click that, all you have to do is click the word publish, and let me show you what that comes up with. So here's a lot of schools that have published their portfolios, and I'll just click on the first one, Bloomington High School. You can see that what's then available to the public. So what Bloomington High School could do, Bloomington High School North could do, is they could just copy this URL and then put a link on their school's website to get to this page so that everybody can see their school counseling program, who's on their council, their vision statement, program goals, priority goals, all that. So, okay. So that just kind of creates a website for your program. Okay, so we've got that. Present the school counseling program to your school board. On that one, you're just going to basically tell us that you've done this. That's a requirement for ASCA and therefore for Indiana as well. And then reviewing the rubric items. And then at the very end of this, but I would wait until after our May webinar to do this in case we want to give you any other final tips. The very last thing you're doing is you're going to you're going to click here, send a portfolio completion email to Debbie, and that will let us know that you are all finished with your portfolio and that you're ready for us to tell DOE that your portfolio meets all the criteria for Indiana Gold Star and ASCA ramp. So yeah, so, and then you'll be able to monitor a list of completers so that, you know, your school's name will be on there after you've submitted. So so you want to make sure that, you know, when this is ready to go and you've got a submit button, that you're doing that. So okay, that sounds good. I think that's it. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. That was the walkthrough. I have, one last thing and then we'll close. Yeah, this is important. So our new initiative, and even if you're not planning to do Lilly, I'd really like you to hear about this. You don't have to apply for the Lilly funding to participate in this new initiative. So, so this is Guiding All Kids. This will take me about 3 minutes to get through. So Guiding All Kids, looking at a systemic approach to school counseling. And this is our overview. So you can see this is a 4-year initiative. In the first year, so next year with us, we'd be kind of setting up the whole system, just creating the organizational structure. And then next year, the delivery method that we'll be implementing is the community-based guidance initiative. So you already have a start on this through all your partners, but we'll be kind of coordinating that and making sure that your partners are trained, making sure that the timing of your partners' activities aligns with your school counseling activities. You know, we'll just be really kind of making that very efficient as all these different partners work together. Then in year 2, we'll start to set up the teacher advisor program. We'll set it up in half of your grade levels in the first year, and then the other half of the grade levels in the second year. So it's a stepped implementation. And it will be basically in the first semester we'll develop the program, and then in second semester we'll start to implement the program. And then also in year 3, we will begin to implement parents as advisors. That's going to be really easy because we're going to do that for you. We'll have all kinds of activities online that parents can engage in, and all you'll have to do is advertise to parents that these activities are there, that they can sit down and with their child and do a career interest inventory together, or do a learning styles assessment together, or learn how to do a 4-year high school course plan together. So that parents as advisors, all you'll have to do is publicize it, or maybe get your PTA involved. And then the academic integration, that's also very easy to implement. It's basically just passing out your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, and asking your academic teachers where they could give a guidance application to content that they're already teaching. So really, this doing the community-based guidance initiative, that's just kind of making what you're already doing more efficient, as well as recruiting some additional partners. The teacher advisor program is where we think you can do the most good in reaching students, because through teacher advisor programs you can get the ratios down to 1 to 15, 1 to 12, and there's constant contact with the students. So we really like that. We'll spend 2 years really getting that beefed up. And then everything will be set before we get to year 4. So in year 4, your funding needs will go way down because everything's already developed, everybody's trained, everything's good to go. And now you'll start to talk about how are we going to sustain this. You won't need much funding because basically it's just kind of an annual review and revise and adjust as you need to. We're not starting from scratch anymore, so it really is a low budget year as you're planning that sustainability part. And then post-grant, you just keep everything going with an annual review and revise. So there's very low funding needs in that after the 4 years, which we think will look really good to Lily or whoever you're going to funding for. Okay, the organizational structure, and again, this is what we would help you set up in year 1. So there would be an overall project coordinator, but that project coordinator is not doing the work. They're just kind of managing everything. Actually, we'll probably call that a project manager. Then there's a curriculum development coordinator, a documentation coordinator, a data collection coordinator. This is similar to what you've done with your steering team already. And then program coordinators. So, somebody besides you being in charge of the community-based guidance initiative. So, that could be a community person. Your teacher advisor program coordinators could be, teachers, or this might be your PTA. So we'll help you get all that organized in year 1, but it won't all be implemented in year 1. So you'll kind of know, Jane Doe is going to be kind of coordinating the teacher advisor program, but Jane Doe is not going to have anything to do until year 2. So not everybody's going to engage at the same time. And then in terms of partners, you'll be looking at that you'll have that as part of your organizational structure, community partners, your teacher advisors, parents, and classroom teachers. That kind of goes without saying. So now in terms of getting this all set in your training, we're probably, and this is tentative, but we're probably looking at over the next 4 years, there would be 4 meetings a year. They would be face-to-face meetings in Indianapolis, and they would be like all-day meetings. And the attendees at these meetings would be based on content. So like in the first year, we would not bring the teacher advisor coordinator to those meetings because we're not talking to them yet. But in year 2, we would bring them to these meetings big time. In a typical agenda for these meetings, the way we do them is we would first start out with team sharing. So, and this is a small number of schools. We're talking maybe 12 max in one cohort. So the schools, we'd start out with sharing, where a representative from each school would get to say how things are going, their successes, the hurdles they faced. Schools would coach other schools. Schools would learn from other schools. It's really kind of an amazing learning community. Then we would introduce some content, and then we would give you teamwork time. So when the team's all there together and our whole staff is there, me and Debbie and Janet, we're all there too to help you face-to-face as your team is working. This is just a model that we've used for about a decade, and it works really well for us. So, okay, so that's the training format, and again, this is tentative. Okay, and then the timeline, if you're interested in guiding all kids, we're going to do a convening, two of them, one on the 12th and one on the 17th. They're morning convenings. I think the times are 9:30 to 12:30. You can register for them at asainstitute.org, and institute is spelled wrong there, asainstitute.org/GAC. And during these meetings, we'll go over what this four-year initiative is going to be like. And then we're also going to provide for you, if you're interested in applying for funding to support this work, we'll provide for you suggested grant application language, suggested tasks for a Gantt chart. So we'll create the Gantt chart for you so that you know what to drop into what years. And then we're also going to suggest a budget, a four-year budget for you to support your work. So you'll get all of that at this convening. There's no charge for the convening. Just come. It's in Indianapolis. Bring coffee with you, because we're also not providing any refreshments at all. So, but it's a free meeting. So then, there will be an application. I expect this to be somewhat competitive. We'll probably get more applications than we have room for. So, give us an application. We'll get right back to you in terms of if we've accepted your application or not. And then that will give you about 3 weeks to get your Lily implementation grant ready to submit. But remember, we're giving you the language and the Gantt chart and the budget. So I think you'll be good to go with that. And then Lily will notify you by September 30th. And then if you don't get the Lily Award, we will allow you to withdraw from Guiding All Kids without any penalty. We've made the withdrawal date by October 16th, and that gives you 2 weeks then, if you don't get the Lily funding, to go to your community foundation or a local business or a local service club and try to get the funding from some other source. Yeah. Also at this convening, we will talk about our cost. We don't know that yet, and most likely we're going to know that actually on April 13th. We'll have a good sense, but I have a meeting with Lily, and I want to talk with them and ask some questions about some funding questions that I have before we set our price tag on supporting, providing technical assistance for schools. So, okay. So that's that, and that's it. So I'm going to take questions, and then those of you who are not planning on applying for the Lily Initiative implementation grant, you feel free to leave the webinar, and I'm going to go for about another 5 minutes. It's going to be really quick, and I apologize that I'm over. Just as always, there's just so much to cover. So Debbie, questions?
Yes, we have 2 questions from Christine.
Okay. Okay.
And she asks, I did the RSC presentation to my school staff this past March. Would that count as the public relations? Or does it have to be presented to the school board?
For your public relations, that's wonderful. That absolutely would count. So if you can just, submit an agenda for the meeting that just lists that you're there, or, just have your principal write a statement, handwritten, that you presented at your faculty meeting, that's fine for your public relations. For the presentation to the school board, that has to be to the school board. That's an ASCA requirement and a DOE requirement. The presentation does not have to be face-to-face. If you have launched if you have created that public website using our tool, you could just send an email to your school board members with your superintendent's blessing, of course, and say, our program is developed, and maybe give a little bit, quick paragraph about how RSC went and how excited you are to have this new program, blah, 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 and then give them that link so that they can look at you know, who was on your council and your goals and all of that, and maybe just, you know, say because of our final requirement is to, you know, present to you, please send back to us via email any comments that you have. And that would do it if you can't get a face-to-face meeting. However, I would really, really suggest a face-to-face meeting, because remember, it's all about relationships, and later you may be hoping that your school board will want to provide another counselor, or provide a half-time counselor, or a counseling secretary, or some more money for materials for you. And if you can start to develop that relationship with your board through this first meeting, that would be great. I always went back to my board once a year to just do kind of a state of school counseling presentation, just to, you know, keep them in the loop and make sure that I'm on their radar and they know that I'm not just twiddling my thumbs and drinking coffee. So, okay. Another question, Debbie, or was that?
Yes, the last one is, for next year, can we change the people in the steering team or on the steering team? I have 2 who may not be able to participate.
Absolutely, and that's a good question. We'll talk about this more at our May meeting, but at our May meeting, we're going to talk about what happens after this year if you're not involved in the Lilly grant. And basically, if you're not involved in our new initiative, let me back that up. I said that wrong. If you're not involved in Guiding All Kids. If you're not involved in our new initiative, then what we'll have you do is every year you will have a time when you meet with your council again, you look at the new survey data, you decide if everything's, you know, steady as she goes, you're on the same course, or if you need to do adjustments. And every year you'll decide, do we need to redo our steering team? You know, people may have moved, they may have gotten tired, there may be, you know, a new teacher who's decided they want to be a counselor and they really want to get on your steering team so they can see how it all works. You know, so every year we'll give you a chance to update your steering team and your council members as well. So, okay, any other questions, Debbie?
That is
good questions, by the way.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, so for those of you who are not planning on applying for the Lilly grant, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next time. So just a few more slides. If you are planning on applying for the Lilly Counseling Initiative, first of all, these next 3 slides are showing you what is in the RFP language, and then what tools we have to help you answer the things that you're going to need to put into the RSC grant, or I'm sorry, the Lilly grant application. So basically, you know, this is kind of what we went over when we were looking at the online system, that in that document there will be the actual RFP language, then kind of our summary of that language, and then our either sample language that we've given you to consider, or a link to something that you've already done that's going to help you to address that section of the RFP. So, okay, and that's it. So there's 3, I think 3, if I remember right, parts to the RFP. There's the executive summary that is 2 pages, and so here's that section. There is the narrative, which is 12 pages. So this is where, you know, you'll have this section, and this is all the parts that are asked for in that. And then there's the appendices, which is 12 pages. So you'll be able to put in your Gantt chart, your budget, and then you'll add in statements from your community representatives, so maybe some of your council members or your partners, really just showing that the community is behind you with this. An assurance that you're going to conform with the laws. There's actually a page that Lilly provides that you'll sign, an endorsement from the governing body leader. So you'll put all that in. And yeah, so that's it. So I guess it took probably less than 5 minutes. But just remember that let me go back. So when you get ready to write the grant, or if you're ready to talk with the person at the district who is writing your grant, you just want to maybe even give them this link, apply for the Lilly grant, give them that link. This is actually a Google Doc, and I set it up so that anybody with a link can access it. So people don't have to be able to log into your RSC online system. They don't need a username or password. Just give them the link, and they would just go. Oh, they are going to need your username and password, because when they go in to connect with these things, to open these documents, they'll need your username and password to be able to open them. So again, I guess what I'm trying to point out is that if it's not you that's writing the grant application, if it's somebody in central office, you'd want to give that person in central office this help sheet to help them understand where you're going, and then also your username and password so that they'd be able to open up these links. And again, we'll have this ready by the end of the week. Okay, I'm going to pause here because I suspect that there's some questions from those of you who are planning on applying for the implementation grant. If we're working with your district, we will do a friendly read of your implementation grant if they schedule that time with us, and we're happy to do that for the schools that we're providing the district RSC for. Debbie, questions?
I see no questions right now.
Okay, so feel free to call Debbie if you have questions, because I can just guarantee that you're going to have questions as we start to get into this grant writing phase. And if we're working with your district, remember there's a district point person who has who I support. So tell your district point person, give me a call, or you guys call Debbie if we're not working with your district. And we will kind of go from there. But look for this document to be up by the end of the week, and we'll go from there. So final call for questions. Debbie, anything?
No, we just have one individual that says their district is applying, but they have not been involved. So any suggestions?
Okay. Yeah, I've only heard of that coming up one time. Is probably the person that asked this question. And I think that's really sad. But what I would suggest is that, remember we talked about how relationships are important. I would definitely present to your school board so that you're on their radar. I'd give whoever's writing in the district, how I would handle the situation, but this is just Sue Reynolds. This is how I handle these things. I pretend that I'm involved in the district, and I would pretend that the district person is just sitting there and they can't wait to get this information from you, and that they need it, and they're so grateful that you're going to give them this help sheet that's got links to everything that they need, and that they are going to write in RSC at your school and your activities and your goals into the district's plans. I would just go ahead I would act as though they're going to do the right thing, and just take them, all that information, and maybe request a 15-minute appointment with them and show them all the richness of what you've got. And if you say, if you ask for a 15-minute appointment and you get your foot in the door and you're sitting down, and now they say, oh my gosh, the middle school has goals and middle school has activities, and they're all defined, and this is so easy. I just click on these buttons and they pop up, and I can just cut and paste them into my grant application that I'm writing. You came in for a 15-minute appointment, and then they're going to start asking you questions, and it's going to end up being a longer appointment. So I would just assume that they want to know all this stuff, and you want to be, and I don't know if this is the situation, but I know, having talked to hundreds of thousands of school counselors over the years, it's really easy, because school counseling has been pushed aside so much. It's really easy for us to take a victim's kind of approach to this, and I wouldn't I'd be really careful that you didn't get caught up in that, because it's so easy to do. I've done it too. They're not interested in me. Why should I even do this? And woe is me. And I've done that at times. So you want to I would treat it as though they are doing the right thing, and step forward and give them this information to be included in the district's grant. and make them tell you no. And if they have to tell you no, then nothing's lost. I mean, that's where you are right now. So I would just, go forward as though they're doing the right thing. So sorry that got a little wordy, but I know that this is hard at times. I understand that totally. So, okay. Anything else, Debbie?
Nope, that's all. Thank you, Sue.
Okay, thanks to everybody. And again, I'm sorry this one went longer than normally we're long, but just lots of stuff to cover. So, okay, so we'll see everybody in May and we'll go from there. Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Debbie. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.